Representatives.
Coming up on our newscast, vote counting continues in the U.S. midterm elections. Republicans appear to be headed to a narrow majority in the House of Representatives. It remains to be seen who will be able to control the Senate. Several Korean Americans came out on top in the U.S. midterm elections. That includes winning a third term in Congress as well as the first ever U.S. Lieutenant Governor of Korean descent. Opposition political parties jointly submit a parliamentary probe request into the Itaewon crowd crush. The president and the ruling bloc dismissed the need for such measures as it would hinder the ongoing investigations. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the top story at this hour. Ballots are still being counted for the U.S. midterm elections. Republicans are closing in on a majority in the House of Representatives, but the Senate is still not decided. The outcome will shape the landscape for the next presidential race and could present some obstacles for the Biden administration. Our Shin Ha-young is on the line with the latest. Ha-young.
Daniel, for this year, 35 of the 100 U.S. Senate seats and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives were being contested, while 36 states were electing governors. For the Republicans, 51 seats of the Senate are needed to take control, while for the Democrats, at least 50 seats are needed as Vice President Kamala Harris has a casting vote. Currently, it's still too early to call which party will gain the majority. And according to the Associated Press, the Democrats have taken 48 seats, while the Republicans have picked up one more to reach 49. The results of Nevada and Arizona will be the key in this year's election, as either party could secure a Senate majority with wins in these two states. For Georgia, there will be a runoff on December 6th after the Democratic senator and Republican challenger failed to take the majority. And meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, which is a key battleground, Democrat John Fetterman won against Republican Mehmet Oz, flipping a key seat previously held by a Republican. And elect the situation in the Senate, for the House of Representatives, the Republicans are edging closer to securing a majority as of now with 207 seats, while the Democrats have taken 184.
And Ha-young, President Biden gave a speech about the election, saying it was a good day for democracy. What did he seem to hint regarding his own political future?
Daniel, President Joe Biden said that the giant red wave that had been predicted earlier didn't happen. He said he will be willing to work with congressional Republicans after the midterm elections. Let's take a listen.
Regardless of what the final tally in these elections show, and there's still some counting going on, I'm prepared to work with my Republican colleagues. The American people have made clear, I think, that they expect Republicans to be prepared to work with me as well.
He also said that the voters spoke clearly about their concerns like soaring inflation and public safety. While he has not made a formal decision about seeking another term in 2024, he said it is his intention to run again regardless of the outcomes of the midterm elections. That's all I have for this hour. Back to you, Danielle.
All right, Ha-young, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. Staying with the U.S. midterm elections, we have the first Korean American to win a third term in Congress in well over 2 decades in Hawaii. Also, the first ever U.S. Lieutenant Governor of Korean descent. Han Sung-woo sheds light on their accomplishments.
Korean Americans making history. The U.S. House of Representatives' 4 lawmakers of Korean descent have either won or are on course to win their re-election bids in this year's midterm elections. The first win declared was on election night. Democrat Andy Kim of New Jersey's 3rd District, who beat Republican Bob Healy to become the first Korean American to win a third term in the U.S. Congress in 26 years. The first being Jae Chang-jun Kim of California's 41st District, who served 3 terms in the 1990s. Andy Kim is an expert in Middle East security and served as an advisor to the Pentagon and the National Security Council during the Obama administration. Another early win was Kim's fellow Democrat and former mayor of Tacoma, Washington, Marilyn Strickland, who will represent Washington's 10th district for a second term. Born in Seoul to an American father serving in the military and a South Korean mother, Strickland became House's first member of Korean and African descent when she was first elected in 2020. Ballot counting still underway, but the results so far also suggest wins for California Republicans Young Kim and Michelle Park Steele. Meanwhile, Hawaii will be the first state to have a Korean-American lieutenant governor, Democrat Sylvia Luke. Luke was elected on a ticket with Governor-elect Josh Green, who won the race in a landslide. 한성우, Arirang News.
Koreans are closely watching the U.S. midterm elections. The results could lead to changes in America's policies, changes that can impact the nation in a variety of levels. Kim Dami provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Hopes are low that the U.S. midterm election results will bring drastic change to the Inflation Reduction Act because the law was passed by both Republicans and Democrats. The U.S.-led IRA puts the Korean electric car makers at a serious disadvantage because it excludes EVs assembled outside of North America from benefiting a $7,500 federal tax break. But not all hope is lost because some Republicans have expressed opposition to the law already, and Democrats are proposing an amendment to delay its enforcement for 3 years.
If we continue to negotiate, the Biden administration could make some changes in the interest of South Korea as an ally.
If Republicans take both the Senate and the House, they could try to end the Ukraine crisis. That could leave some room for the South Korean government and businesses to breathe because Harden wouldn't need to participate in sanctions on Russia and could reopen flights to Russian territory. North Korea could also be something to watch closely with respect to the election. The regime has unleashed dozens of missiles just this month alone. That includes one short-range ballistic missile into the East Sea on Wednesday. But what many have worried about, the regime's imminent nuclear test could be on hold.
The U.S. is in the midst of a political upheaval, and the results could change the policy regarding the Korean peninsula. So the North may be watching out for that and postponing its nuclear test.
Some experts also note that this was not a presidential election, meaning the results will not result in major changes in terms of Washington's policy on the peninsula. Still, they are significant enough that they could have implications for the next U.S. presidential election. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, the leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit. President Yoon Suk-yeol told reporters about the planned session on his way to work in the morning. The White House also confirmed that the leaders of the three sides will sit down on Sunday in Phnom Penh. The focal point is expected to be North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. Separate bilateral talks between Yoon and Biden is also scheduled, but no details are released yet. Here in the nation's main opposition parties jointly submitted a request for a parliamentary probe into the Itaewon crowd crush. President Yoon and the ruling bloc dismissed the need for such measures. They believe it would hinder the ongoing investigations. Kim Bo-kyung fills us in.
President Yoon Suk-yeol on Thursday dismissed the opposition party's push for a parliamentary probe, saying people want to find out the truth based on a scientific and legally binding investigation over the Itaewon crowd crush.
저는 일단 경찰 수사 그리고 송치받은 후에 신속한 검찰 수사에 의한 진상 규명이 국민들께서 더 바라시고 계시지 않나 이렇게 생각합니다.
The president's remarks came before Parliament's request for its own investigation had been reported during the plenary session held on Thursday afternoon. Sponsored by over 180 lawmakers, the joint request to set up a special committee that would be in charge of Parliament's own investigation over the Itaewon accident had been submitted by the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea and other minor progressive parties such as Justice Party and Basic Income Party on the previous day. The ruling People Power Party did not take part in the request. Opposition parties have been pushing for a special probe, accusing the government of mishandling the accident and not holding any high-level officials accountable.
A parliamentary probe can find the truth by getting reports from people, verifying the data, and examining witnesses. This is not what the ruling party says. hindering the investigations, but rather to secure the necessary evidence and to help the investigation process by making sure it isn't a selective investigation like it is right now.
To this, the ruling People Power Party says a special probe like this, which would not be legally binding, wouldn't be much help.
Finding out the truth is only possible through legally binding measures such as special police investigation team and prosecutors. A parliamentary probe is non-compulsory, so it will only cause political strife and arguments.
As the request was reported during the plenary session, the National Assembly Speaker is entitled to form a special committee in charge. It is then required to come up with an investigation plan. That is scheduled to be approved at the next plenary session, which is on November 24th. With the deadline set for the 24th, which is the day Special Committee's investigation probe plan is scheduled to be approved, eyes are on the ruling PPP's next move and whether it will eventually decide to take part. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea and the UNHCR signed an agreement to strengthen cooperation on humanitarian issues. Speaking with the head of the agency, Seoul's foreign minister vowed to increase the nation's contributions. Min Suk-hyun tells us more.
South Korea has again pledged its support to help refugees. During talks with the visiting United Nations refugee chief, Filippo Grandi, Seoul's foreign minister Park Jin said the country is ready to play its part to help solve this global crisis.
With the growing global refugee crisis, UNHCR's role is indeed very crucial. And the Korean government is ready to increase our contributions.
At Thursday's meeting, the two signed a partnership agreement, a framework aimed at expanding their cooperation on humanitarian issues. UN Refugee Chief Grandi said the agency's relationship with South Korea has gone from strength to strength over the years and hoped for closer partnerships with government institutions, civil society, and the general public.
It is, of course, the financial support that the government provides to UNHCR. It is also the extraordinary generosity of individuals in Korea that provide millions of dollars to our cause, to refugees all over the world.
Grandi stressed this support was very much needed, especially at a time when the world is facing so many other challenges, from security to climate change, the pandemic, and inflation.
There are 103 million refugees and displaced people around the world today. This is the highest figure that we have seen since the Second World War. So we desperately need allies, partners like the Republic of Korea.
Since 2016, South Korea has been a member of the UN Refugee Agency's top donor club, commonly known as the $20 million plus club. And in terms of fundraising activities from the private sector, the country is the fourth largest in the world. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has asked Seoul to participate in next year's Global Refugee Forum. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
The second prototype of South Korea's locally developed supersonic fighter jet has successfully completed its maiden flight. The KF-21 took off at about 10 a.m. Thursday morning from an airbase in Sacheon and flew for about 30 minutes. It was about 4 months ago that the first prototype carried out a test flight. The country's arms procurement agency said 4 more prototypes will be tested from next month. The project to develop the KF-21 at a cost of more than $6 billion is aimed at replacing the aging F-4s and F-5s. The Air Force plans to deploy 120 of them by the year 2032. The Korea Development Institute has cut 2023 growth forecast to below 2%, a decline from its outlook for this year of 2.7%. According to KDI, mainly due to weakening exports as the global economy slows down, next year's economic expansion will likely come to about 1.8%. As for consumer inflation, it raised the forecast to 3.2%, a decline from this year, which exceeded 5%. It's well above the central bank's target of 2%. Home prices are declining mainly due to higher interest rates. To prevent a huge dip and to help people who need to buy in this market, the government is easing regulations on lending. Ji-young explains further.
Starting next month, South Korea will ease lending regulations for people who own just one home or are trying to buy their first. Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho said during a ministers' meeting on Thursday that the government is rolling out measures to help those who actually need housing. The country's real estate market has been slowing down as surging borrowing costs are scaring buyers away. Chu said the government is aiming for a soft landing to prevent the country's real estate market from excessive contraction.
It is inevitable that the once runaway property prices should be partially adjusted downward. But combined with the recent sharp rate hikes, the government should be alert to avoid a sudden freeze of the real estate market.
For people who own just one home or are trying to buy their first, they'll be able to borrow up to 50% of the assessed value of the home, even in speculative areas. If they meet certain requirements related to the household's combined income, they'll be able to get up to 20% more on top. And with home prices having risen out of reach for many people, the total amount that they can borrow will be expanded from the current 400 million won to 600 million won, or about $440,000. Also, starting next month, mortgage loans will be available when buying homes in speculative regions valued at more than $1 million. These changes were due to be applied early next year, but have been moved forward to be effective starting from December 1st. Ji-young, Arirang News.
The IAEA is collecting data to test the levels of radioactivity in waters near the Fukushima Daiichi power plant as Japan prepares to release contaminated water into the sea. In addition to samples collected by local labs, the agency will collect its own samples to verify the findings. Tokyo plans to release radioactive water that's been building up for over a decade as space is running out. The radioactivity in the water would have been significantly diluted. The IAEA will review whether Japan's plan complies with international safety standards. Taking part in the project are 2 staff from the IAEA Environment Laboratories in Monaco, as well as experts from labs in Finland and South Korea. Russia prepares to withdraw troops from Kherson. This would be the most significant military development since September. According to Moscow state media, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu made the order as Ukrainian forces advanced toward the city from 2 directions. Kherson was the first and only regional capital that Russia has captured since February. President Zelensky suspects Moscow's announcement could be a strategic move to regroup forces. The Ukrainian leader thanked Washington for military aid and hoped bipartisan support will continue regardless of the outcome of the U.S. midterm elections. A number of countries in Europe are dealing with protests over the cost of living. Greece has seen a massive disruption to public transport and flights. Strikes also by nurses in Britain, airline workers in Germany, and factory workers in France. Lee Seung-jae has the full story.
Europeans have been taking to the streets, demanding that their governments do something about the rising consumer prices. Most of those involved in the protests are workers, demanding higher pay, as they say inflation is leading to a cost of living crisis. On Wednesday, Greek workers took to the streets demanding higher wages to combat the surging inflation. The strike saw a massive disruption of public transport, including flights and ferry services. Thousands of Greek protesters marched to Parliament in Athens as part of a nationwide action.
I can't get through the month. It's difficult to make it to the end of the month. Making it to the end of the month means your wages will last you until the last day of the month. For me, my wages have already been spent after the first 10 days.
We can no longer bear the high costs. We can no longer bear the poverty. We can no longer bear the exhaustion. We are here. We are fighting so that we can find the answers.
The protests come despite the government having raised the minimum wage twice since January and pledging more wage hikes in 2023. It's also promised more handouts for pensioners to soften the blow of the current crisis. The latest protest also follows a string of walkouts in Europe in the past month, including in Spain, France, the UK, and Belgium. Energy prices have driven inflation in the 19 countries of the Eurozone to nearly 10%, making it harder for people to buy what they need, leaving people with little choice but to hit the streets to protest. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Turning to the world of sports now, Son Heung-min is doing everything possible to be ready for the World Cup despite his recent injury. On Wednesday night, the captain of the team, South Korea, made his first public comment since receiving surgery. Via social media, he thanked fans and emphasized he won't miss the World Cup. Son highlighted the mask he'll potentially need is nothing compared to the face mask everyone has been wearing during the pandemic. Tottenham star forward sustained a fracture around his left eye during a Champions League match on November 2nd, giving football fans quite a fright as the World Cup is right around the corner. This weekend will be the last chance to take part in the outdoor library program at Seoul Plaza. The program, organized by the city government, has been running since April. This weekend it will end with a special lecture and a concert of classical music, both on the theme of consolation and healing. They're also highlighting a selection of around 200 books that readers will find comforting. For those dealing with trauma, particularly related to the Itaewon crowd crush, there will be counselors on site as well. The library is open on Friday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., on Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 5.
The main issue for the next couple of days will be high concentrations of fine dust. With the stagnant atmospheric conditions leading to further accumulations, western parts of the country will see poor air quality tomorrow. The Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongnam-do province will see air quality standing in the bad category for the entire day. Mild conditions will continue on, but do expect wide temperature gaps. Most regions, including Seoul, will see a difference of 10 degrees or more in between day and night. Conditions will stay warmer than the seasonal average until this Friday. Until then, big fluctuation in temperatures will continue to prevail, so make sure to dress up warm. Morning temperatures will be 1 to 3 degrees warmer than today. Seoul will be starting off at 11 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul and Gyeongju will reach 21, Chuncheon 19, Busan will reach 22 degrees. This weekend, nationwide showers are in the forecast. With a cold rain, temperatures will take a steep dive on Sunday. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.